Okay. It is now 6 p.m. on May 14th, 2026. Did I hit the thing first and then say we begin the meeting? Or is it after? Okay. Okay. All right. Let's do call to order and roll call.
Commissioner Arceo,
Present.
Commissioner Taylor,
Here.
Commissioner Brock,
Here.
Commissioner Cooper,
Present.
and Commissioner Gonzalez.
Here.
So with the first order of business will be approve agenda. Okay. Approve agenda to better accommodate members of the public or inconvenience in the order of presentation. Items on the agenda may not be presented or acted upon in the order listed. Additions to the agenda may be added only pursuant to California Government Code Section 54954.2B. Any presentations? Oh, sorry.
I'll make a motion for
I second.
approval of the agenda.
I second.
No presentation? Just today?
What, whenever you want to.
Okay. Motion to approve the agenda item or agenda? Yeah, agenda. Okay.
Public comment.
Oh, public comment. Okay, public comment provides opportunities for the members of the public to address the commissioners on items of interest to the public within the commissioner's jurisdiction and which are not already on the agenda this evening. It is the policy of the commission not to answer any answer questions impromptu. Speakers should limit their comments to not more than 3 minutes. For items which are on the agenda this evening, members of the public will be provided an opportunity to address the board as each item is brought up for discussion. No public comment? I see. No one on the public. Okay.
No public.
Okay, regular calendar. Approval of the planning commission's minutes. Approved minutes from 4/9/2026. Planning commission meeting as prepared by Community Development Administrator Assistant Carol Bartle. Am I pronouncing that right?
I move that we accept the minutes from the last meeting.
I will second.
Okay.
Had to call vote.
Oh, and second zoning ordinance, that? Okay, sorry. Zoning ordinance text amendment, staff report by Community Development Director Holly Owens.
Good evening, Pro Tem and members of the Planning Commission. Holly Owen, Community Development Director. Tonight before you, we have an item that we have not had in a very long time. This is a proposed zoning ordinance text amendment to add a use, to add cemeteries and associated uses to the Resource Conservation and Open Space Zoning District. Just a reminder that the Planning Commission has the authority to add to a list of uses in any district if they make certain findings. And that is what is before you tonight. There are findings to be made, and then your action would be to accept the CEQA, a determination for this particular action, not for the project, but just for this text amendment to our zoning ordinance, and then to add to the list of uses. So just a history about this. The cemetery district came to us with a proposal for a new building that initiated their site plan review request. And that is at this point still ongoing. There's a few things they want to do in addition to that, perhaps with a lot line adjustment and the like. But what became apparent was when we went to verify their use according to the zone, it wasn't there. Even though the cemetery, according to research, has been there for many, many years, and I think all community members know that. But at some point, there was a zoning ordinance update that left it out of the use table. So what this action is doing really is to officially add it back into the zone that it already exists in. And that requires your action and then action by council to accept that, that change to the zoning ordinance. You have as planning commission, you have the authority to, consider any uses really, but they can be requested by an applicant, they can be requested by the city, or I believe even by planning commission itself. So what you have before you is the process for adding this list. Since the use was not mentioned in the resource conservation and open space district, we developed the verbiage to put that back in there. And that was the city attorney and I just working back and forth to make sure that if we put it in that district, that it was appropriately worded and that it was a conditional use. So it isn't a by right use. They would still have to come to planning commission if any other cemetery or similar use was proposed in that district in the city. So one of the things you really have to do that's important for this process is to make findings, and the findings are in the zoning ordinance. They are listed in the big part of this staff report, and we can go briefly through those, but it takes a little thought about making those findings, but and that is certainly up to discussion. But at this point, that staff has recommended the findings be made, and then the appropriate language to verify that was added. So the first one is the addition of the use will be in accordance with the purposes of the district in which the use is proposed. It doesn't conflict with any of our planning documents, the general planner, or anything else. And the use that's proposed is kind of a passive use, such as the similar in nature to what is commonly found in the open space district, like parks or low impact recreation, preservation of natural resources. So that use, it jives nicely with what's already there. It has, again, it has the same basic characteristics as the uses permitted in the district. And it can reasonably be expected to conform with the required conditions for the district. It won't be detrimental to public health, safety, or welfare, or adversely affect the character of any district in which that would be located. It would not create more vehicular traffic than the volume normally created by the uses permitted in that district. And it will not create more objectionable influences such as odor, dirt, smoke, noise, vibration, illumination, glare, unsightliness, or any other objectionable influence. So those are staff's proposed findings. The use will also not create any greater hazard of fire or explosion. So really the intent of these findings is to make sure that there's a thoughtful analysis of what's being proposed. Is it likely that it's going to be a disturbance to neighborhoods, or is it going to increase traffic, or and all those findings are listed in the zoning ordinance. So every time you add a use, you go through this list to make sure that it's compatible with what would be expected in that district. The secret determination is what's called a common sense exception, which means there's no significant effect on the environment by adding this language to the text. Now, we're not talking about the actual proposal. We're just talking about language being put into the zoning ordinance, and that's what's before you today. The other action is to adopt the resolution amending that section to the code to add that use, and then it's also make sure that it's a conditional use in that resource conservation and open space district. What happens after this is if tonight you put this into the zoning ordinance, you are in agreement that that's a good, an appropriate action to take, And then it will go on to council. And they're the ones that have the authority after you suggest something like this to put that into the zoning ordinance. So we haven't done one of these actually in a very long time. It's probably something that we should do on a more regular basis to clean up our code, but now we have a template. Now we have a resolution, and it'll be a little bit easier to bring things forward when we feel like uses could be either added or some of the language changed too.
So basically, we're just adding words. That's all we're doing.
Very good.
There's
That's
no
exactly-
plan, there's nothing to
That's
approve
all that's
or that.
in before you today. Now,
that's right.
the use, because it's a conditional use, will come back to you once this is added into the zoning ordinance as a conditional, a CUP. And that's when you will be involved again to look at the use, look at what they're proposing, see if there'll be conditions of approval. And then you will have that opportunity to evaluate that project at the time. But the first step is just to make sure that we put the words in to even get to that point. So that's what we're doing tonight.
So I see there's two possible actions. Is there one that's better?
That, by the way, just wait, that concludes my staff report. And so now you
I'm
can
sorry.
ask, no, that's okay. You can go ahead and I think there's.
So I
something-
see two possible actions listed. I'm not sure what distinguishes them.
Well, one of them is the CEQA determination. One of them just is,
Okay.
so that's often the first action you take when presented with this kind of resolution. So it's just saying there's no environmental impact.
Okay.
If there may be an environmental document that would be involved with this too.
I gotcha.
But there's none because the adding of language to your zoning ordinance or your muni code is not considered an action that has environmental impacts in this case. So that's your number one. And your number two is to review and then adopt the resolution that's attached to your document. That concludes my staff report. I'm available now to answer any other questions you might have.
This isn't part of what we're talking about, but I'm just curious if the cemetery was to expand graves, where would it go? Or is that part of what we're going to determine later?
Well, they do have space for that, at least as far as we can see. They have a fair amount of property, but that would be another action. That wouldn't be before us tonight. That would be, a consideration and that would be probably part of their conditional use permit to expand that. So I'm assuming that if they come to us with a conditional use permit, some of those uses will be addressed at that time.
Well, since nothing's going to change and we're just putting words down, I would think that I would propose that we make a motion to accept.
We have to,
amendment.
I think, Brian, you have some tasks ahead of you
Oh,
now.
that's right. I forgot about Brian.
Well, I had a question. So we're adding ancillary structures into the municipal code.
Yes.
Can we explain what those are?
That would be structures that would be ancillary to the primary use. So it might be a storage shed, or it might be, something that would assist in that use being realized.
Would that include like what they call like housekeeper or housekeeping?
Possibly.
Yeah. What
It's all it's a rather broad definition. So when a project would be proposed to us, then we would make that analysis as to whether or not that's compatible. What they're proposing is compatible.
And then so if we include that language, would that make it by right to have a
No, this is all conditional use permit. I mean, this falls under conditional uses. So it's not by right necessarily. I mean, now by putting this into the code, it's an allowed use with conditions. So before it was silent. There was no, it was left off, but somewhere between 1964 and 1982, it disappeared. So we needed to resurrect it, so to speak, and put it back into the zoning ordinance.
And then one more follow-up question is,
I just said it.
ancillary structures have like a square foot limit, or it's just by use?
Well, it would just depend. It would depend. I mean, the structures would have a square foot limit if for building permit purposes, for setbacks, for, parking and circulation. So it would be like any other site plan where it would have to fit within, within the proposed area.
Mhm.
So
Okay. Any follow-up questions by commission?
I like the map. That's an old map.
that was the coolest part. I am a map nerd, and so to find that map was exciting. And
Graveyard.
Yeah.
and I just had to draw that little red circle because I thought, well, there it was, and there it was in the city limits at one point, and then it
It disappeared.
it disappeared somewhere, off the radar. But the map is. If I could find the original of that, I would like to hang that in my office. But
Yeah.
Where is the?
Open public comment.
um,
Want to call
Okay,
the
I would like
order?
to open public comment for this discussion. Any members of the public wishing to speak here or on,
I believe this
virtually?
gentleman wishes to speak.
Okay.
If you feel comfortable, sir. that's
Please
fine.
come up and state
Mhm.
your name and, I think address. as well.
Yeah, you just have to push their button there. There you go.
My name is Carmen Rojas. I'm superintendent of Kingsburg Cemetery District. And what we are looking to do is to build right north of the cemetery, we have 15, 18 acres. And we're looking on the east end off of 10th, we're looking to build a new office and a new shop. And then the rest of the land, it'll eventually become burial grounds. And going through this process, we learned that the cemetery is not in the, it's not zoned for cemetery use. And that's my simple way of saying it is that's what we're looking to do, so we can move forward
Yeah.
with our project. Is there any questions for me? And when I learned that we were not zoned, like what happened? And the only thing that I could think of was somewhere in the 1980s, in the 1990s, we were brought into the city limits. And before then, we were not in the city limits. So maybe that's why we're not zoned or with the city or something like that.
Is there any plan to build a mausoleum?
Currently, we don't have a plan to build a mausoleum, but we're looking to eventually build a columbarium where we can bury cremains above ground.
Mhm.
But first, we want to work on the new office and the new shop. And where the current office is at, we don't have exact plans yet, but we've considered tearing down that current office and using that area as for a columbarium for remains above ground.
Great.
And then we've talked about building somewhere like in the center, like I don't know if anyone's familiar with the city of Greeley Cemetery. They have an area where they can do burials. I forget what they call it, where they can have they can have like services indoors during foul weather.
Oh,
And that's another thing that we have in our thoughts too, that maybe we can do something like that. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Carmen.
Thank you.
close public comment.
Oh, Public comment is now closed. Okay. All right, make a motion, right? Oh, right.
So this
Okay.
isn't gonna restrict anything they're doing. They hit a wall when they started to look at expansion, that because this was excluded somewhere along the line, they actually couldn't proceed without it being added back into the overall plan.
That's correct. That's correct.
So it's not gonna restrict anything in any way, just putting things back in order. And they can go about their business and we can do our thing as far as, looking at future developments and.
That's right. The future development is still sort of a work in progress. I mean, we've just had our initial meetings with them, the one meeting actually, and then it was discovered that there was not cemeteries in that district. So it seemed like a big oversight, but we decided we needed to back up, put that in, and then put it in as a conditional use. So it will come back to you once they've hammered out their details. So.
Was it found because they were looking at expanding the cemetery and they started doing that, or was it?
It was just found by me when I thought, well, surely it's here. And then it wasn't. So.
Okay.
Is it under graveyards, Holly?
Maybe I didn't. Yeah, I should have searched G for graveyards. I don't know. Graveyard, 2 words.
Graveyard.
I don't know. Anyway, it will be in there now with your blessing and your action tonight. So.
Yeah. Also, I don't see a problem with it at all.
Any further discussion among the commission? No? Okay, I will now close public hearing. Would anybody like to make a motion or possible actions? Okay, so possible actions. 1, find that the amendment to section 17.16.040 of the Kingsburg Municipal Code to add cemeteries, including burial parks, columbariums, and mausoleums dedicated to the permanent, perpetual internment of human remains and ancillary structures related thereto, to the list of conditional uses in the Resource Conservation and Open Space District is covered under the common sense exception provided in section 15061B3 of CEQA guidelines, because it can be seen with cemetery that there is no possibility that the amendment to section, go ahead, sorry. Oh, section 17.16.040 may have a significant effect on the environment. Did I skip a line?
No.
No, okay. And then possible action 2, adopt resolution. Oh, sorry.
That motion.
Make a
I so
motion
move.
to approve that amendment to add it back into the plan.
A second.
Okay, motion approved. Possible action 2, adopt resolution 2026-03, amendment section to section 17.16.040 to the Kingsburg Municipal Code to add cemeteries, including burial parks, columbarium, and mausoleum dedicated to permanent, perpetual interment of human remains and ancillary structures related to thereto, to the list of conditional uses in the Resource Conservation and Open Space District.
I make a motion. We adopt that resolution. Is that what we're supposed to do? Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, Brian, get to vote on it.
Oh, yeah, we didn't vote for it.
Like a roll call or a vote?
Yeah, all in favor.
Oh, all in favor? Say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed? Nay, okay. Motion approved. Okay, regular calendar item 3, objective design standards for multifamily, staff report by Community Development Director Holly Owens.
Thank you. Holly Owen, Community Development Director. Thank you. Yes. Tonight we have before you the potential adoption of the City of Kingsburg draft objective standards. The recommended action is determine the adoption of multifamily objective standards is exempt from CEQA. That would be your first action. And then the second is recommending to City Council the adoption of the proposed objective design standards for multifamily affordable residential projects, which are streamlined per the following bills: SB 35, SB 423, AB 2011, and SB 6. And the executive summary talks quite a bit actually about why we're doing this, and the number of bills that have been passed over time by Sacramento. As we all know, Sacramento is very concerned about housing, and especially removing barriers to affordable housing projects all over the state. One of the requirements that they had over the years was to require, first of all, cities and counties to develop sets of objective standards And then I'll allow them to apply those standards to particular projects. The particular projects were identified as streamlined. So if you came in as a affordable housing developer for multifamily, you could follow what is called a streamlined process, and it would become a by right project. That meant no review by the city, basically. You know, they would have to follow some of the health and safety standards and certain development standards, but basically there was a timeline and there was an automatic approval process. Pretty serious for lots of cities and counties to consider. So many of them took that opportunity, and they were required to take the opportunity to develop objective standards. So there was a lot of conversation among planning directors and staff about what those look like. How are we supposed to do these? What can be in them? What is an objective standard? What's a subjective standard? And we've started this conversation internally here with our October meeting. We had a PowerPoint and walked through sort of conceptually what we were talking about. And then in April, we talked about this too, same PowerPoint, little updated. I decided not to subject you to the PowerPoint for a third time tonight, but I think given all that conversation that we've had, hopefully you have an understanding of why this is important, not only because it's a requirement, because it gives us the opportunity to develop some sort of what I would like to call a safety net for the city. I mentioned that to City Council just as an information item with their last meeting, so they are brought up to speed about why we're even doing this. They also know that you've had time to consider the draft objective standards that are attached. There was some conversation with the last planning commission meeting about expanding the objective standards to subdivisions and to by right projects. And at the end of the day, while that is there's a solid idea, I think that's a project for a point in time that is coming to us, where we look at all the design standards that we have embedded in our various documents. And we look at what's already in the form-based code, for instance, and the North Kingsburg specific plan, and in the Swedish design guidelines. So we have a lot of aspirational documents, but at this point, what is before you tonight is just a little bit of a safety net, a protection for us. And all cities and counties are aware that these standards that are attached to your document are, would hopefully create an attractive, useful, project with amenities. Should a project that is for affordable multifamily housing come to our city. Now, I will say, in talking with my colleagues in the Central Valley, there's very few cities that have had this happen at all yet. But this is something that if we have this underneath as something we can apply to that particular type of project, at least we can be assured that what's in here would hopefully result in a product that would meet the needs of multifamily housing in a useful and attractive way. So there's a lot here. There was some talk about what's the difference between design standards and design guidelines. There's language that design guidelines tends to have. They sort of say should, and a little bit looser language. And then standards have, must, for instance, as a word, or, a measurement, a certain type of measurement that is applied to a project. So it's much more quantified, measurable, and that's what makes it objective. And ideally that takes that conversation out of maybe what is a subjective and grayer area into something that's more concrete and that is easier to understand. The public understands it better. Other staff would understand it better, ideally. So what we have attached in your packet tonight was developed by the Fresno Council of Governments. They did some work with other cities also around the state, and we all steal from each other when there's good ideas. And so what's in front of you tonight is the result of their draft. We've worked with it a little bit, but I think what you have before you tonight is something that would protect us, frankly. And in case somebody would come in with this streamlined project. Now they have to, when they apply for a project like that and call it streamlined, there's a certain process they have to go through also. Some of that is they have to use prevailing wage, for instance, for building that project. They have to, submit a particular form. Again, I've not seen this, nor have any of my colleagues seen this yet in the Central Valley, but this, you just never know. So with that, that's high level, but we've been through this before a couple of times. We talked a bit in a wide ranging way about how objective standards might be applied to other types of housing projects. We can get there, but until then, I think staff recommends that this is a step that is important for the city to take. So that concludes my staff report. You have your recommended actions. And if you've got any questions, I'm here to help best I can.
All right, thank you, Holly. Now, commissioner discussion. I just had a question. Was the ADU discussion being included in this, from what Sherman was asking last meeting, or?
The ADU question, I think we have, for the time being, it is not part of this. But I think that we can certainly add, I think we've talked about our ADU ordinance and matching certain architectural features, especially if it's visible from the right of way, is important. And that's probably as far as we can go with ADUs and design at this point. That'll take a little more research, and that might be, the next iteration of evaluating design in general for the city, that we could flesh that out a little bit more. So.
Holly, so in order for this streamlined approval process to be used, there has to be a developer who's interested in building some affordable housing. Is that correct?
Yes. And they initiate that streamlined process.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it has to be a minimum of 10% of the total units. So if there's a minimum of 10% of the total units affordable, then that triggers the streamlined approval process. But apparently there's no maximum.
Yes, it could be 100% affordable.
Could be 100% affordable.
Yes, it could. Absolutely. Yeah.
Wow.
Well,
That's a surprise.
That's partly why adopting a set of, this is when I first saw these, I'll be honest with you, I was like, there's a lot here, and I'm not an architect. So I'm glad they have pictures. I'm glad they have a list, a glossary to tell me what, some of these things are. But I think what this shows to me is if it would be 100% affordable project, at least we would get some amenities. We would get some pretty good design. There were examples of types of design that Kingsburg would want to see, which I think is pretty broad. We didn't do that part was not prepared by an architect. We grabbed images off of what we could find, for instance. But I think it helps to give you a visual idea of what we could ask for. I like the fact that there's some open space amenities, like places to sit outside and, that kind of thing that would be included.
Is
So
the 10% figure, is that part of the SB 35 wording in the law?
I believe so. Yes. I'd have to look.
Okay. Yeah, if you consider that it could be 100% affordable, then those design standards become really important.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Correct.
Now, I'm not against affordable housing. I've brought this up numerous times at city council meetings and planning commission meetings that I believe that these residential areas should all have a minimum requirement for some affordable housing. And I brought that up numerous times, but I don't see it happening. I've even mentioned Mr. Palomar, that he might be a doctor someday, that he mentioned this at the city council meeting, and see if the city council might have some interest in requiring minimum numbers of multifamily in these new residential areas, such as throwing in a few duplexes and a couple of triplexes. And it's not an insurmountable, unreasonable request for a new developer, but I don't even see that happening. In order to get affordable housing, I've come to the conclusion, you have to mandate it. You have to mandate it. And this SB 35 really forces us, I guess you could say it, that there's no mandates for them to build this affordable, even a few duplexes. There's no mandates for the developers to do that. So this is one way that we basically kind of lose control. This SB 35 really takes away the control that this could be 100% affordable.
Yes, yes, it
housing.
does. I mean, I will
And-
say that, one of the points of adopting the objective standards is to sort of claw back the remaining local control you would have over what a project looks like and how it's used by the occupants. So
it's 10% minimum. I guess I'll have to read this law. And it could be 100% affordable, but again, there's no restriction on the number of affordable units. I mean, how many affordable units could they potentially build in one area from SB 35? It doesn't really say here. It says minimum of 10%, could be 100% affordable. Gosh, I wonder how many units they could actually put up in one area. That would be really concerning. In fact, that becomes more concerning than the design standards, which are really important. So let's say that SB 35 allows the developer to put up an unlimited number of units, all affordable. That's a problem.
well, our housing element does address some of that. There are parcels that have been identified as potential sites for housing, multifamily, lower income, doesn't have to be lower income, but there is a maximum number of units that is in our housing element inventory, and that's something that you can use as a guide for what the potentiality is. And then, of course, there are limitations in terms of building code, fire code, that kind of thing. So
Again, I have nothing against affordable housing, but it needs to be done properly so that you don't overwhelm the city. And so I'm going back to my original concept that every residential area that comes into Kingsburg should have a few affordable units. If we did that, if we had a few affordable units, a couple of duplexes, triplexes, in these residential areas, it would attenuate the demand for somebody to come in and put in a huge complex, according to SB 35, with a large number of units, which I think would be a bad idea. I'm not against affordable housing, but I like to sprinkle it. I like to sprinkle it around the city, not concentrate 200 or 300 units, say even 100 units in one large complex. All you have to do is drive through Parlier if you want to see what that looks like. But I don't know what else we could do. Has the city council ever discussed that concept, Mr. Palomar? Sprinkling some multifamily in a new residential area and requiring it, mandating it that it be put in? No?
Hey, Paul, drive down 14th Avenue, and before you get to Rayford Johnson School on the left-hand side, you look at that block of housing that's in there. And back in the day when I know Les Neal was living across the street from us, he fought that thing tooth and nail, and somehow it got passed. And they built these housing units there that were affordable, supposed to be for special needs and so forth people. And I've just seen that thing turn into an eyesore. And the whole thing was done. There was no homes in there. It was all affordable housing with special needs attached to it.
Which one, where is it?
Right on
exactly?
14th and I think Windsor Drive comes to a T. Right, it borders right up next to
Linmar, I
Rayford
think.
Johnson.
I think
Yeah.
Linmar.
And, my parents' house is across the street and I just watched that
Yeah,
thing turn.
couldn't be
into a
more than
nightmare.
about 10 units, maybe.
Yeah.
How many units are in there?
I don't know. I'd say it's probably at least 45 units in there.
25 units?
45.
45 units?
So, yeah. They're like little duplexes built into there and they're, like
Thing is-
back to back.
Well, they're on the
stuff.
corner of 14th and Stroud. Is that the one you're talking about?
No,
Little
it's
bit further
Linmar
south
Apartments.
there. The
Oh,
Windsor Street
okay,
or Windsor
okay.
Drive, where
It's a little
Windsor
bit-
Drive ties in with 14th Avenue.
A little bit south of
Yeah,
that.
it
A little
just
bit
hits
south
right
of Stroud.
it's just west of that.
Okay.
So,
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine. I mean, I don't even notice that when I drive by it. It's set back, but, as I said, I have a little bit of concern. There's no maximum on the number of units they could put in. How'd you like to have 200? 200 would be more of an eyesore. So if you think 45 is an eyesore, how would you like to see 200? So, yeah, just a little bit of a concern. And again, I'm into the sprinkling. He just brought up a point. He says it's an eyesore because there's 45 units, right?
Well, it started out really, well kept, and then all of a sudden you just see it start to digress. And then the people they're bringing in Section 8, and next, there's,
So,
I'm not saying that, here or there, but I know it, if you had a house across the street, which Les Neal did and my parents did, that would bring the value down in regards to selling that house in the future.
so you've just supported my concept that you sprinkle affordable housing around town in small numbers of units.
Yeah.
You just supported that concept. Because if you have 45, then that's the kind of response you get that you just gave me. But if you have 3 or 5 or 6, a duplex, a triplex, then you're not going to get that response. So you're not going to get the response that Robert just gave with 45 units. So I'm back to it. I'm back to sprinkling affordable units, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 maximum in different areas around town, especially in these new residential areas. But I don't know how to institute that. I guess the city council has to institute that with an ordinance change. Would that be the way to do it?
Yes, that probably would, Commissioner Cooper. And to answer your question, the city council, we have never discussed
Never
that,
discussed it,
in an open meeting, to, have duplexes in a development with single family homes.
Now, and the reason I say this is because I was at a planning commission one time with a couple of developers, and I said, why don't you put up some duplexes? Well, they don't like putting up duplexes. They want single family homes because that's where the profit is. They don't even like putting up one duplex in a residential area. And the feedback I got from the developer was, well, nobody wants to buy them. Well, I don't believe that. I don't believe that for a second. I believe the answer is he doesn't get as much profit as he does with a single family home. So I don't listen to developers when they say, oh, no, nobody wants to buy it or nobody wants to rent those things. They do. They do. They're just not as much of the profit. So the only way you're going to get them in is you have to mandate it. The developers won't voluntarily build it. We haven't had a developer talk about affordable housing in here since, have you ever heard it, Holly, since you've been here? No.
There again, we subdivided 30 acres south end of Kingsburg, and we had 4 duplexes and a triplex there, but it was on 10th Avenue. And the garages were behind, so they weren't pulling in off of 10th. And then we built 110 homes behind there. So
How many,
that turned out fairly well, and
Mhm.
I think people
So-
there, the pride of ownership. That
So it was 110 homes?
Mm-hmm.
And how many, a couple of duplexes? How many duplexes?
4 duplexes and a triplex.
Well, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
I think you could, I think it's a larger conversation to have, and I think that
yeah.
one of the challenges would be, well, is it, is, first of all, you have to have a developer that does both types of housing, and those are hard to find. I've asked that question myself of developers, and it's interesting that they are single family builders.
Yep.
Or they're multifamily builders. And if they do any kind of multifamily at all, whether it's affordable or not, they need to go into partnership with them. And affordable housing is deed restricted. So that becomes, another specialization, I guess, of a project that would, if you want to do market rate townhomes, for instance, within a larger subdivision, that might be more, an easier way to start that analysis.
Still better
I
than
think when
nothing.
you get into affordable, it really does, it seems to be like an either or game. You're either in market rate, subdivision, single family home in the Central Valley, that is. I think we're, as planners too, we're always looking for successful examples of how this mixed use housing has been integrated. And it's not been done all that successfully, all that often in the state yet. Now, some of these bills are going to drive some of that, is my guess, eventually.
Yeah, I think you're giving the builder a little more credit than I would. I think the builders who don't want to build, and there's lots of them who don't want to have anything to do with any multifamily, even one duplex. They can rapidly change their attitude when there's a bylaw that says you have to put in 10% of your homes duplexes and triplexes, or you're not putting in any homes. Suddenly they become interested in duplexes, and they do their homework to come up with elevations for duplexes that look like, one single family house, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, they can be motivated to do this, but they won't do it unless they're forced to do it. And that's the motivation. So yeah, so I'm actually thinking about coming to the city council and talking about this and see if I can get some interest in them to discuss it. Because the other thing is, we're supposed to build a certain number of affordable dwellings in Kingsburg. The state requires us to build affordable units. So, it's more than just an aesthetic discussion. We're required to build some of these things. And if we've been getting away with it because we have these seniors residences, but are we up to date with the number of affordable units we're supposed to build?
We're in year 2 of an 8-year cycle. At this point, we've done mostly market rate up until now, but there's a pending project that would take care of at least some of and it is a senior project. So
Yeah, see,
there are, 5 or 6 years, some things could change. So, and just to clarify, we are not required to build them. We are required to remove obstacles to those opportunities.
right.
So we aren't penalized necessarily if we don't quite meet our low income. They don't like it, of course, but
Yeah.
that in the past, that's how we've managed to make that number.
And there's another aspect too. The children that we produce in Kingsburg can't afford to buy a house that they're in the town that they grow up in. And I'm having that problem now. My daughter's looking for a house to buy. She wants to live in Kingsburg. Oh boy. Yeah, that's difficult. So, you got a lot of people who, progeny of old families in Kingsburg, their kids can't afford to live here, and they don't have $1 million to buy a house. And if there was some, more multifamily units, they could start out in Kingsburg in a duplex or triplex, but they're not even there. Those opportunities aren't even there. And that's not good. Yeah, there's more to it. There's a sociological aspect and a practical aspect and a financial aspect and a legal aspect. And we don't talk about it much. And so I'm thinking about going to city council and talking about it. Maybe I'll get a reaction from them. Thanks.
Thank you.
I have to disagree with Paul. whether you have single homes, they aren't going to want duplexes in there. I mean, they just don't. Yeah, I have a single home. I wouldn't want a duplex next to me unless I could pick out the people that were going to live in it. But that's not going to happen because people with duplexes, low income housing is usually for low income people. And they don't always have the care that single home buyers do. For whatever reason, because they're low income, they just don't get ambitious about doing the yards or taking care of things like that, in my opinion. As far as being able to afford housing, that's a problem everywhere. It's not just Kingsburg.
It is, it's a United States problem. It's especially a California problem.
Yes.
And I think
That's a world problem.
it's a world problem.
Yes.
So I think this conversation is deserving of a deeper dive and, and some investigation on the part of planning staff to see what else is out there. I mean, I go to meetings, everybody's talking about it. So with any good ideas that I can glean, I'm going to be happy to come back and have that larger conversation. So at this point, what's in front of you tonight is let's put the safety net in place and we can have a conversation about standards for other types of housing if we wish down the road. But
Well, just let me get a little justification for my suggestion. No, nobody's going to want to have a duplex pop up once they bought their house. My suggestion was new developments where the houses haven't been built yet. They're required to put in a couple of duplexes or triplexes. So those duplexes go in before anybody buys a house, not afterwards. So if you buy a house, you're buying it next to a duplex. And I'm sure there's a developer say, oh, this house is never going to sell because there's a duplex next to it. And I don't believe that for a second either. So in Kingsburg, no, I don't believe it for a second. So my suggestion was in new developments, they're required to put in a small number of duplexes or triplexes before anybody buys their house to eliminate the problem Barbara just talked about. And it does eliminate the problem because no, anybody in an existing residential development doesn't want to wake up one morning and find out there's a six unit apartment building going across the street. No, that's not going to happen. But you can't get away with that. But in a new development, yeah, you can.
But as Holly said, that's for another discussion. That's not what we're talking about here.
It's not, yeah, that's not what the objective.
it's a larger
standard is about.
discussion. And it's an important discussion. So I welcome your comments and council probably needs to have direct staff to do some research and we can go from there.
Great. With that, I would like to close the commissioner's discussion and open up to public comment. I don't see anybody in the public, so I will now close public comment. And let's continue to, continue to commissioner discussion once again. Any last questions or comments? I would like to say, I know it's kind of a sidetrack, but I do like that idea. When they're proposing the tentative track map, they could, designate a few, duplexes or multifamily within that track map. So when people are buying their lots, they know ahead of time that yes, they're going to get one next to, or they won't choose that one if they want, So I don't know if that's an option, how that works with the zoning and all, but I think that more aligns with what Cooper was saying. But yeah, any other further discussion?
I think what we're looking at here, objective standard, we're just looking at a way of controlling what does come into Kingsburg, regardless of, any kind of development. At least we have a handle on somewhat what it's going to look like versus just going through a timeline and meeting certain criteria. They build whatever they want to. So I think that's kind of what we're looking at here, right? Just to kind of get a handle on.
Well, and especially for affordable multifamily housing. Market rate is still subject to the planned unit development process, which gives us more staff and determining bodies more flexibility to influence what it will look like. And this is particularly for those that would come in, there's like a 60-day turnaround. It's, it's it takes a lot of the local control away if you do not have these objective standards. So that's the purpose of these for the time being.
And we as a planning commission have that responsibility to the people of Kingsburg. I mean, we've had this discussion before, and you talk to anybody who lives in Kingsburg versus other towns. There's a reason why they want to live in Kingsburg. There's a
And
reason why
Kingsburg's
property
very-
is more expensive than other cities, we have a very unique situation here where, we have a great chemistry going on with development and downtown and everything working in unison. So I think we have a responsibility to protect that and basically the guidelines that monitor any kind of construction coming in with multifamily or single family. So I think this is I'm all for this resolution, basically, just get it going here.
Okay, with that, I would close public hearing. Sounds good. Yeah. Okay, so possible actions. One, determine the adoption of multifamily objective standards and exempt from CEQA and is covered by the common sense exception provided in section 15061B3 of the CEQA guidelines because it can be seen with certainty that there is no possibility that the adoption of the objective standards may have a significant effect on the environment. A motion to approve.
I will make a motion to adopt the objective standards for resolution 2604.
Second that.
Okay. Are we doing the sequel first, right? Was that the sequel? Yeah. That was the sequel?
Yep.
Okay. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, all opposed? Motion approved?
Carol, did we get a second on that? Yeah. Oh, that. Oh,
Okay, second item, recommend to the city council the adoption of the proposed objective standard or design standard for multifamily affordable residential projects, which are streamlined per SB 35, SB 423, AB 2011, and SB 6.
I move that we recommend to the city council the adoption of the proposed objective design standards for multi-family affordable residential projects which are streamlined per SB 35, SB 423, AB 2011, and SB 6.
And I will second, but I won't tell.
Okay,
Yeah, what she said.
all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion approved. Okay, future agenda items. Any future agenda items?
No, no items from staff at this time. If there are, you will hear very shortly because the turnarounds are quick these days. I'm going to be taking this again to this zoning ordinance to council. And I will also take the objective standards to council. And so this is the last you'll see of the objective standards for the short term anyway. And then we'll come back with a conditional use permit application once the cemetery district is ready for that. So thank you.
Question, is there a statewide planning? What would you call it? Seminar? Don't they, does League of California Cities have a statewide planning seminar?
You know, I'll have to
What's
look
it?
that up. I know there was a Planning Commissioners Academy that was held, I think it was every other year. But I will look into that because that's for the planning commissioners. There's also League of California Cities that's elected, all right, Vince? And then there's the American Planning Association conference that I attend just to get my credits and learn about hopefully useful things I can bring back to
What's that one called?
Kingsburg.
What's that one called?
That's the APA conference, the
American Planning Association?
right.
All right.
Okay, I'll make a motion to adjourn the regular planning commission meeting.
I saw
Can I get a second?
Second.
Oh, that was the second. Oh, yeah, I did the first.